Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 14 Wyndham-Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. The time is 6:30 on the dot. And we're at Raymond Modular. And now I'd like a roll call, please. Katja.
Grab my attendance sheet.
Katja.
I missed a week and I don't have my sheet open. Kate Bricks?
Yes.
Jessica Bridges?
Yes.
Jenny Butler?
Yes.
Jody Carroll?
Yes.
Caitlin Downs?
Yes.
Pete Hensler? Char Jewell? Kate Levier?
Yes. Here.
Christina Small?
Here.
Al Potter? Here.
Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Howell, any adjustments to the agenda?
We do not have any adjustments to the agenda.
Okay, excellent. We're going to move on to public input. This is the time for the public to speak. As always, we're limiting it to 3 minutes per person. No derogatory comments, and also no discussion of any staff personnel. This is not a back and forth, but we welcome your comments and are eagerly listening to you. So who would like to be first?
Hi, I'm Kristen Day from Wyndham. Is this on? You hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, I think we're good.
As far as I know, RSU 14 schools don't have explicit sexual materials in the classrooms or in the library. So why am I speaking here and now? Because last year it was outside of Maine, but now examples are in nearby districts. Oxford Hills Board just approved a policy that allows counselors to keep students' info from parents, and just days after the election, the DOE put out a new rule, Chapter 117, regarding privileged communication between school counselors and students. Every student has the right to be who they are, period. But no adult at school has the right to discuss a child's personal sexual identity behind their parents' backs. How could any parent who has kids in school support this? What will RSU 14 do with this rule if it passes? Last year, a Wyndham board member said she serves students and teachers, not parents. But our kids are not wards of the state. Parents are legally and morally responsible for our kids, and we cannot be excluded by the state in matters of our children's well-being. We have no control over the SEL, social emotional learning curriculum, coming from the DOE, nor the Attorney General push for LGBTQ+ activity in school, but these programs are blurring the lines of what is appropriate between students and teachers. Teaching through a lens of personal background and sexual identity is opening Pandora's box, confusing students, increasing harassment and bullying, and opening the district to liability. My daughter's teacher recently told his class that he's uncircumcised. Is a teacher talking about the state of his penis to a class of 14-year-old students okay, so long it's in the context of teaching a storytelling unit through the lens of his religious background? School policy says no, but does it sound like SEL? Would this teacher have told students the same story even 3 years ago?
Yeah, we're actually...
Before COVID, would kids be asking each other's genders and sex
Is this specific to a
preferences?
teacher? If it is, I'm sorry, it's not appropriate at this level.
Before COVID, would kids be asking each other's genders and sex preferences or labeling each other during school? Parents raising concern with any of this has been painted as conspiracy theorists and extremists, racists for not wanting SEL to divide our kids based on their skin color or background, and homophobes for not wanting explicit sexual materials in our schools or our child's sexuality a topic of conversation. I never thought I'd be at a microphone pleading for decency for our children. Raising concerns does not make me a racist, a book burner, a homophobe, or a conspiracy theorist. It makes me a protector of children's innocence, which we all should be. Students deserve an unbiased education to learn to be their best, not one that divides and shames them into hopelessness, groupthink, and intolerance. How rapidly our schools have changed from what has always been considered conventionally appropriate for kids. I don't see how it's controversial that in public school, the private lives of minors and adults should be kept private the same way it is in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Steve Napolitano. Thank you for your time. I'm just going to play a quick video.
To be clear, the board can see this, but I don't believe the public,
Correct.
if I understand it, will be able to see this.
Like Ollie London joins us tonight. Ollie London, thanks so much for coming on. So why did you decide to become a Korean woman? Who told you that was possible? So obviously I've had a difficult time with my gender identity struggles. I was never unhappy with how I looked. So I started changing, I started dressing as a Korean woman, and I realized that was a big mistake and I just want to be a boy. But you know, is it any wonder people like me and young people want to change their gender when we have the normalization of this in our schools in this country? Children are taught from a young age, from the age of 5 in some cases, that it's okay to change their gender. It's okay to, you know, wear a skirt. It's okay for a boy to use a gender-neutral toilet when it puts girls at risk. This is the new norm, and schools are teaching about toxic masculinity. They're eroding the alpha male. The alpha straight male has been eroded. You know, Tucker, what happened years ago when kids used to go to school, they used to idolize Superman and astronauts. Now kids are being pushed this radical ideology. They're taught to idolize weak men like Harry Styles, weak politicians like Beto O'Rourke. Why is this happening, you know? And is it any wonder people like me fall victim to this, that I had all this surgery, I tried to change, because, you know, I kind of fell victim to this mentality. I'm an adult, but, you know, these kids can't make these decisions on their own. They're being pushed this radical agenda, and I'm grateful that I've come out the other side. I'm grateful I found God. But, you know, I want to speak up for these kids that are confused with their gender. A lot of kids have gender dysphoria, and, you know, that wasn't a thing 20 years ago, Tucker. This is what's being taught in the school system.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm not mocking you at all, sincere question. Did it make you happier? Did you feel when you, quote, transitioned and started living as something that you weren't, did you feel like you were that thing, and were you at peace inside?
You know, I've never really found happiness until recently. So I was always struggling with my looks, as most kids do, especially as a teenager between, you know, the age of 11 to 13, kids change. And kids start to question themselves, they start to question their look, their identity. They have self-esteem issues. This is normal. I used to really hate the way I looked, so I thought having all this surgery, trying to become a girl, dressing as a girl, trying to be more feminine, I thought that would make me happier. I realized that was a big mistake, and I feel like, you know, if I was born 40 years ago, I wouldn't have done this. It's what the woke culture is pushing these days, what we see on TikTok. It's the new normal, and this is so wrong. It's really affecting our kids, and the school boards have a lot to answer for with this.
I agree with that. A lot of people are unhappy inside. That's normal. But pharmaceuticals and plastic surgery aren't going to fix it, of course, as you know. Ollie London, great to see you tonight. Thank you, Tucker.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Great. Thank you. Anybody else?
So Steve, that was his 3 minutes.
Gotcha.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. He came to.
I gotcha.
All right. Okay, Ken Wyndham. So I appreciate you watching that video, and I put the posters there because that's a clear indication that the school is promoting those ideas to the kids. Exactly the transgender options. You remember me reading through the book of the 57 busts of cisgender, transgender, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, two-spirit, den boy, non-binary, agender, third gender, gender fluid, male, female, female, male. Those are all the things that are posted on the wall at the school that, in my opinion, are mentally have a dramatic derogatory effect on the kids, and it's proven. So, and I'm going to just follow up on this. We had a professional psychiatrist, doctorate degree, I believe she had, Holly Bean, come and speak to you folks. More credentials in this field than anybody in the school that I'm aware of. She knows this stuff, she's experienced in it, she's educated in it, which we all are aware that more education you have, the better off you are, and should be able to segue your opinions, and they should carry a lot of weight. I guess my biggest takeaway from Holly's speech that day is that kids are young, especially in this age, and they don't understand the consequences of their decision. Okay, so people are grasping onto this just like that gentleman did, and he thinks it's what he might need. But then he goes through operations. Now they're taking hormone-changing pills, and it is seriously affecting the physical and emotional growth of these kids. Transgender is a much higher suicide rate. I think and agree there's all kinds of confusion when kids are younger, but we're making it too easy for them to grasp onto things that they're not mature enough to know what the consequences are. And it's hurting kids. And any kid that gets down this road like that person, and I condone this, I'd feel guilty for the rest of my life. It could be a suicide that generates from what we're promoting to these kids that are not young enough to understand the consequences of what they're doing. And it's being promoted. You folks are allowing it. I guess that's what it comes down to. You folks are letting this stuff go in school and be read. And I'm here to advise right now that there are facts and professionals backing it up that says that it is wrong and not healthy for the kids to do. And there are lawsuits. Michigan just had a lawsuit that the school board was sued for continuing to push this type of stuff. And whatever happens, happens, but I'm just putting forth, it's serious. This is our kids, my kids. No one should ever think they're gonna talk to my child about her sexual orientations. Jessica, I don't know why you're smiling, but I mean, I just don't understand. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I'm listening.
It just cannot happen. And it's just so wrong. And I've told my daughter, if it does, let me know. And I know other parents are doing the same thing. So I didn't go over 3 minutes, I guess.
Wow.
Wow.
Bravo.
Thank you. I could have.
Well done.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? If not, we're going to move on to some nice news here. I'd like to welcome Caitlin Downs and Christina Small to the board. They were newly elected, and yesterday we had a nice orientation with them and gave them a packet that might take a little bit of time to go through, but I think we had a good conversation, and I'd like to welcome both of you to the board, and I know you'll be great assets. I'd also like to thank Marge Gavani for her time on the board. Marge was on a plethora of committees. She was on finance. She represented us on the vocational schools. She was on the negotiation team. She's on facilities. And she was also on the construction committee, which she will continue to be as a public citizen. So thank you, Marge, for your service to the board. And now we're going to move into superintendent's report.
A couple of things that I want to share, and actually board members, I had put or placed some handouts in front of you, and just wanted to share a little bit of information about yesterday, what the what the school experienced, and actually in one case here what the school board experienced, because we were working through the initial safety situation while we were doing board orientation yesterday in the central office. So first of all, I just want to say, I probably should turn this microphone around because some people can hear me. I just want to say, first of all, a huge thank you to Wyndham Public Safety and the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office. Number one, their level of communication was absolutely outstanding. They dispatch and Officer Fournier and Captain Williams were in touch prior to even when we were starting to hear some news reports which had some questionable content to it. And then also were able to confirm yesterday early on that we were dealing with a hoax situation versus a real live emergency, which God forbid that any of us have to face in any school district, and that any school district that's had to face it. Also to Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, who was very, very responsive to our Raymond schools where we do not have a set police presence. And just for the public to know that as soon as it was even unclear that things were going on, our local dispatch was already dispatching officers to each of the schools to make sure that our schools felt safe, that they felt protected, and that there was a law enforcement presence that was there on campus. And it's just, we are just so fortunate, and we are just so blessed that we live in communities where we have strong ties with law enforcement, and that they are able to respond in a manner like that, and that they take the safety and the security of our kids just as seriously as any of us do. So furthermore, just going on as the day progressed yesterday, and I think the community had a chance to read this, that we did receive a non-specific text threat that was received by a single student, that later copies of that were distributed across multiple students. But then the resources that Wyndham Police Department and even the main computer crimes task force put into just helping us identify the location and or origination of that particular text, so that we could quickly assess that, and I say quickly, a few hours, but when you look at the amount of time and the resources that were going on and other things at the state yesterday, for them to be able to do that to help us identify where specifically it was coming from, so that we could determine whether or not it was a credible threat. But I thought would be helpful for the public to know is that we have a protocol that we use. It's the standard response protocol. It's one of the gold standards for response protocols. And it was interesting even having a chance to talk through with some people from other districts and conversations where we use these terms. All these posters are plastered everywhere. In fact, in central office, there's a copy of it in the bathroom, which I just thought was interesting. I don't know who put it there, but that we use things such as hold, keeping kids in place. We use the term secure, and secure means that when a building is insecure, that we are really closely monitoring who comes and goes, and in some cases we raise it to a level where nobody comes in and we just let parents come and get their kids and to be able to screen them out. I think it's important for the public to know that our buildings are always insecure, whereas they're always locked. There's a one-way in. Yes, we do deal with situations where kids go to prop a door or let a friend in, and our high school has been working really hard as far as addressing that with students. But all of our buildings are constantly in secure mode. There are other districts that will use the word lockout versus secure, and what has been found nationwide is that lockout gets often confused with lockdown. And a lockdown situation is very different, where kids are sheltering in place, they're moving away from doors and windows, shades are pulled. It's a very different situation. It's a very elevated situation in a school safety sense when a school goes down into lockdown. So we use secure, we use lockdown, and lockdown our kids practice, and each of our school resource officers and members of Cumberland County Sheriff's Department, as well as members of the Wyndham Police Department, participate in those lockdown drills to make sure that they have a familiarity with our protocols and our procedures, and that also they have the opportunity to know our buildings and know them well. Both of our law enforcement entities care a lot about our students and our staff. We do have evacuate. We have locations that we have pre-planned to evacuate, and I know the board has had a chance to see in our confidential security plan where some of those locations are. And then we have times when there may be other emergencies where we need to shelter, and that we need to go ahead and just make sure that whether it be an accident or in some case a storm, where you're pulling kids in. Yesterday, we set up our district emergency team in my conference room. Captain Williams from the Wyndham Police Department came in and joined us. Every single decision that we made, every phone call that we made, every single piece of information we received was logged, was kept in a running sheet. And we will be using that sheet to go back and to then look at, did we follow all of our policies and procedures? Did we follow our protocols? What improvements can we make for notification? And one thing that we've quickly learned is that while we're seeking to make sure that buildings are secure and that we're getting information out to parents, we also need to make sure that we're getting out timely information to students, because even though people were communicating yesterday that it was a hoax, there were some students who felt like they were not being given the full truth, because what they were seeing on social media actually varied from what teachers were telling them. So ways that we can get information so that we're working on planning and doing things like that. We had Michael Dorn come and work with the district on our security protocol. Michael Dorn is the U.S. expert on school safety. He is the expert witness that has been brought to every single school violence event for when events have been looked at and studied. He spent last year, I think it was last year, over a week in RSU 14 going over all of our policies, procedures, and all those components to make sure that we are okay. So while yesterday was not a real thing, it felt very real, and we are going to learn from that, and we are going to take everything and all the different actions of things that we did, and we're going to dissect them one by one and make sure that if we have to go into a similar situation again, that we can do everything. But again, I just want to say a big thank you to Wyndham Police and Cumberland County Sheriff and our SROs. They took control yesterday, they did the work, and they're continuing on today investigating the secondary issue from yesterday making sure that they have uncovered every single thing possible to make sure that our students are safe. So hopefully we do not need to go back down that road again. But I'm worried this pattern of swatting with it's domestic terrorism is really what it is, with individuals who may not actually live in the U.S. who are making calls to cause total disruption and chaos and strike fear in the hearts of our kids and our parents and our staff members, and it's totally inexcusable. And you know, we were a secondary victim yesterday, not nearly the victims though of what Sanford, Brunswick, Portland, Gardner, Winthrop, all the way up to Fort Fairfield yesterday, what those different schools were going through as calls were coming in. Gardner was another one. So again, we'll continue to learn from that, and we'll continue to look at our policies, practices, and procedures, and I know the board tonight's going to have a chance to approve our safety plan. Just another thing I just want to mention about our safety plan, it is not a static document. Every time that we learn something, or every time that we learn some sort of a protocol piece that we can improve on, we will go ahead and do that. Our school safety team meets weekly to go over all of our different pieces to make sure that we have everything that we need in order to be taken care of with that. So I just wanted to give an update to that. As people walk around our buildings, they're going to see these posters everywhere, the standard response protocol. We use this, and it has worked well for us, and it's a common language that all of our teachers have been trained in, our staff members have been trained in, and our students through orientation days and things know those different pieces and that we practice. But we don't want to repeat yesterday, but we'll continue to work to be prepared for that. Just a couple other things that I just wanted to talk about tonight. We had our DEP permit hearing last night at Manchester School for the ball field upgrades, and representatives from the town, RSU 14, and Stantec, who is our civil engineer. Many of you know Dwight Anderson from the construction project, who's working on that. In addition, Portland Water District held a public hearing for our DEP site permit. We had one member of the public come, and so there were 15 adults there representing the different entities and one person. She had a very personalized walkthrough on the project and just some of the pieces that went along with that. So that's the first step. Another step that you may see in town tomorrow is that we've had our initial traffic study meeting with the Department of Transportation that happened Monday morning, and they've identified all of the intersections that they want us to take a look at within a 2-mile radius of the new school site. And you will most likely see tomorrow on the roads from 6 to 8 in the morning, and then from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, people with clickers sitting on the side of the road at all those different intersections collecting traffic data to see where does all the traffic flow, and then trying to then predict what might increased traffic look like for the new middle school site, and trying to predict. So any intersection within 2 miles will be reviewed. In addition, a review of the North Windham corridor and any impact of traffic from bringing Raymond down to the new school site will also be looked at as part of that review process. Lastly, just want to end with my report tonight. You know, sometimes we forget that there's a tremendous amount of committee work that's going on, and I thought it just might be helpful for the board for you to have a list of all the different participants and committees and things that are at work this year. I mean, often we hear about the strategic plan, you hear about the administrative team, which are all the building administrators and directors. In addition to that, we have a principals leadership team for elementary, which is where the elementary principals and Christine, Lisa, and I meet with them once a month. The secondary principals, again, meet with Christine, Lisa, and I. Multi-tiered systems of support committee, which is looking at how do we build in interventions. And then the equity committee, the SEL, the infotech team, and the curriculum committee, which has had a chance now to work with the curriculum committee at the board level, looking at some of those pieces. So it just gives you an idea of the number of people right now who are involved in the work. It's a good distribution of staff members across the district. And I know throughout the year, committees will have the opportunity to come forward and have a chance to connect with the board. And I think when we do committee reports, maybe I can just do a quick construction, or do you want me just to jump into it right now?
Go.
Why don't I jump into it right now? So construction committee met last Thursday night, the 10th. And for the first time, the committee had a chance to view some of the 3D renderings of the new building and some of the design pieces. And I think at this point, looking at after the new year, having a chance for the architect to come and meet with the board and share some of the initial drawings and some of the design layouts and pieces that have been done for the building and just some of the committee discussion. The next meeting on December 15th, which unfortunately looks like it's going to conflict with the Jordan Small Orchestra concert and band concert. We may need to take a look at that, but we'll include looking at some interior design. So what are the themes for design that we'll be looking at for that new space? One thing that anyone who was on the construction committee would had a chance to view some of the representative buildings. Every community has their own flavor for what the inside design of a building looks like. And there's some that looks great, and there's some that you just look at and say, you know what, 5 years from now, it's not going to be a good look. So I think the construction committee has a general consensus is that we want something that's going to be timeless and warm and inviting for students, and just making sure that some of those colors. But I think the committee will have a chance to look at 100 different types and design schemes and things, and then we'll start picking out. And then the same day, for half a day, the architects and the design folks will be at Jordan Small Middle School, and the other half of the day they'll be at Wyndham Middle School meeting with groups of kids, and kids will have the opportunity also to say, out of these 300 so different designs and chairs and colors and all sorts of things, have a chance to have some input into what the possible building interior scheme might look like. So kids in the morning, adults at night, and then I think by January, a lot of these things will be put together. But even the other night, just to see in their 3D modeling, sun, and how the sun is going to hit the orientation that every single classroom will have natural light all day long. It's very cool how they can predict. They can show where the shadows are going to be in the different components of the building. Again, I'm just absolutely wowed by the team that we're working with. I think it was a great choice that you made as a board for this particular firm, and I just look forward to January for you to have a chance to see that and to see the work that they've done.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, board roundtable. Anyone have anything to share? Jenny?
I do. So if anyone has not had an opportunity to see Little Shop of Horrors, and I know Al's going to talk about it too, but absolutely fabulous show. The students and the staff, they're absolutely wonderful. Puppetry masterization. So if that's a little bit of a teaser, that's good. Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon, I think it's at 7, right?
Yeah, it's 7 and
Perfect.
2 on Sunday.
And 2 on Sunday. Definitely worth seeing. Absolutely great job, as usual, but fabulous.
Perfect. Anybody else?
I just would
Sure.
kind of piggyback, and thanks Chris for the update today. So yesterday was the first time I've been in the United States when anything like that happened. So for me, it just felt a little different. I can say just really confidently, not been with the team very long, but I felt like I wanted to call somebody all day, you know, just the idea. But since I hadn't heard anything from you, I knew that you had it handled. You know, so I appreciate that. That made me feel better as a parent, but also working on this team, I knew that if I wasn't hearing from Chris, it was handled, you know, and that I think that from my perspective was the first time where I just was like, you know, and just carried on with my day. So thanks for handling that. I did appreciate the notes. What you did say earlier, though, was that we had students in the district. My younger kids were upset because they couldn't go outside for recess. So that's how that touched them, you know what I mean? And that's appropriate, that they didn't necessarily know about that. And they were, you know, feeling upset about that. But that to me was a good good news story. If we had older students, I couldn't agree more with you about maybe just not understanding or trusting what was going on. That's something that I feel like we need to really hear loud and clear. It's certainly social media, it's a bear, we can't get around it. But me personally, I had 2 of my friends text me and say, I know that there was a shooting in Sanford at 3 in the afternoon. This is a highly intelligent person who was traveling for work and has 3 kids in the school system, and she believed that there had been a shooting yesterday. And so just if our adult people around us can't really get, you know, the right information, then our students, they have these phones, and if they are not feeling confident, I guess what I'm trying to say is more education on this, right? Is what is the difference? Why are we doing what we're doing? And it's one thing if they don't trust their teacher, but we really just have to, I think, just say out loud that if they don't feel comfortable, then that's something to think about. You know, how can we tie an action item to close the gap on how they feel comfortable in the school? And I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think you hit it really, you know, on the head to say, you know, that secure piece versus the lockdown. And there's only so much information you can get out, but I just would really love to hear this year as a team about how we close that gap. That's all I have.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a really good point. I was thinking about it. I think in the high school, I knew about everything that was going on before the end of period 1, and period 1 ends at 9:25.
Okay.
So just about, I feel like pretty much everybody in high school knew probably less than 20, 25 minutes after things were happening at these other high schools. So I think, and then period 2 starts and people are, the whole first half an hour of class is figuring out what's going on. So I think that's a really good point, is getting information out sooner so people know what to do for the rest of the day, because instead of just looking at 8 different news sources and like, people don't know what's going on, just hearing from their friends.
Not to put you on the spot, Al, because
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about that today too. From a student perspective, what would be the best way for students, in your opinion? I know there's
Yeah,
lots of
there's
different points of view, but, you know, is it something from the principal, or is it the principal filters it to the teacher and then the teacher shares it with,
Right.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
What
think
do you
those emails that you send out are, I think everybody gets those on their phone. Everybody will, I think on Monday, it was your yesterday, like Mr. Karen would go over the intercom and say, check your email for the latest email that came out, and that goes to the whole school. So I think everybody,
Oh, okay.
those are pretty well. Everybody sees those. Those are good.
So
ways to
they
get the
see
word.
what Mr. Howe
Yeah,
sends out?
exactly. Yep.
Oh,
They get pulled
okay.
out of, like, if they have a student has their phone in IC, they get Blackboard messages as well.
So again, because you're the only student here, did you get a sense from other students that there was huge concern, or do you?
Yeah, they were, cause at first people were like, wow, there's like a shooting going on. Like people were like, that's what we thought was happening.
Yeah.
For a long time. There were a couple, oh no, that's not happening. Oh, it's not happening at one school, it's happening at another. It was kind of crazed for a little while.
Even after the first, I think it was 9/28 that you sent out the first email, even after that?
Yeah, even after that, because a lot of people, I didn't check my email at that point. I didn't see that till after, probably middle of period 2. So it depends on if people are looking at their phones,
Yeah.
checking
Yeah.
those things.
And they're in class, and
Right.
maybe being
Right.
instructed, and
Exactly.
teachers
Right.
like, what are you doing?
And I think we ran into the issue yesterday with news media was reporting what the actual caller had said.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily reporting what the school was saying. And so those reports continued on, whereas dispatch, public safety were reporting a different message. And what's even interesting, just kind of in my position where, you know, the messaging coming, hospitals are ramping up for mass casualty events, and people sending me that versus people then sending, this is a hoax. So we have a underground superintendent chat with information that flows freely on mostly snow days, but that was, the tendrils were going out further and further to verify information, and that was actually just coming as quickly as what was coming out of dispatch. But there was a lot of misinformation and a lot of news sites printing misinformation that they then later retracted and pulled and then reported the right story. So one thing that we're working on is appropriate messaging and what's the best way to do that and get that quickly. I think the one thing that we're always concerned about is that any messaging that we send out has to be factual, it has to be true, because once it goes out, you can't pull. But when we send out a Blackboard email, and for everyone knows, Blackboard is just a vehicle, and it allows you to send a text, an email, and a phone call at the same time if you want to do all three. It hits 7,300 email addresses roughly within about a minute. And then if you want to do text messages or the other components. One thing I have found with phone calls is that people ignore them. And they more likely respond to, because they see a number. Sometimes they'll pick up if it's the school, but a text to view. But we're going to learn from it. We're going to learn from it and improve. But Blackboard's the vehicle.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, and
Sure.
I think I know the answer to this, but so the students received an email. Was that just high school students? I mean, I have a middle school student, but she didn't recall. She doesn't.
She
check
probably,
her email, so.
unless she has, I would need to check that, Kate, to see whether or not their email addresses at the middle level are attached to Blackboard. I know high school, because a lot of the high school students are in there. I need to check on that, and I can get that back to the board. I can't remember.
And I only asked because I would hope that you could kind of parse out the high school students and, maybe.
Different message maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I have a 5th grader, and she knew something was going on, but was more upset that she couldn't go outside for recess.
Yeah.
That's what I want, and then I can have that conversation with her, because I think there are some kids that hearing some of this could be, a little traumatic. I mean, even when she got home, she was like, "Is it okay for me to go outside?" I'm like, "Yes, please go outside and play." But so, I mean, I do think we would want some sort of filter with age groups on that messaging.
From the parent side, I emailed you to make sure I didn't miss something, because it was really weird. I was on a different world yesterday, apparently. Wake up, get my email, and I see safety update, and I'm like, well, where's the original one? I didn't even know what was going on. Of course, just having done the emergency plan, I felt really good, so I no problems. But that initial, oh hey, we're going into lockdown, that initial thing was missing, and then I didn't pay attention to the news until after that. And then, like you said, Al, it was confusing because there was so much going on.
What was the flavor today in school, the day after?
I didn't notice anything really. I don't think people were really talking about it all this kind of,
No.
at least in the high school, people were just
Kind of over.
Yeah, kind of over. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a single 3rd grader ask me what happened yesterday.
Oh, you
But
did?
just one, and then they weren't upset about it. It was very like, hey, what went on? That was it.
That was it. Well, I know you had mentioned that there was police presence both yesterday and today, and I think that was probably of comfort for both parents and students. And later on, we're going to be voting on the plan, and as you all know, it was presented to us at our last meeting. And I just want to reiterate again that, from my perspective, what we heard in executive session was pretty complex, well thought out, and I came away knowing, as you have mentioned, that this is a very fluid document. I know you're going to slice and dice this situation every which way to Sunday, and y'all meet once a week, I believe. So we take safety as our #1 priority, and I'm sure we've learned a lot from this situation, and we're not perfect. Situations are so different. You just never know what's going to come down the pike, and we just do the best we can. But I think our crisis team is pretty darn good, and I just again want to thank the cooperation with our law enforcement and our fire department, because their support is absolutely crucial for our school department, and I think we have a great collaboration with them, so hats off for that collaboration. Thank you very much. I have, if no one else does, do you?
I do, but I
Well,
wanted to make sure that we had said everything on that subject.
Okay.
Because I'm changing the subject.
Well, please do. Go ahead.
And I'm just going to put out some congratulations to the
Good.
field hockey team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
So they did. They had an outstanding season. Went the furthest in program history, and
Yeah.
you know, they came a long way.
Sure did.
They started the season 0-3, lost 4 out of their first 5 games.
Wow.
And so you didn't know what kind of a season it was going to be. But then they went on an 8-game winning streak. And in the middle of that winning streak is when I think things really kind of turned for them. It was an away game against Falmouth,
Oh.
and they got down 3-0 in the first half, and the second half was incredible. It was, I don't know what Corey said at halftime or what some of the captains said, but they turned it around. They came back and won that game 4-3, and I think that just showed them that
They could do it.
they could do it, and we all know they went through a lot.
Yeah.
They lost their last game of the season, and as fate would have it, playoffs came, the schedule came, and they were going to play Scarborough again in the playoffs, and we all
Yep.
know what happened prior to that game. And,
Right. Right.
but they fought through it. That game was exciting. That was an away game in Scarborough. They got down in that one, came back towards the end of the game to win, and yeah, so it was an incredible season, and not only the results or whatever, but we went to the awards banquet, and some of the awards that were talked about, there was the SMAA All Academic Team, and to be named to that, you had to have an average grade of 93 or higher for
Wow.
3 consecutive years, and the team had 8 players.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Pretty great showing.
Yeah, so then the Maine Field Hockey Association Academic All-State Award, very similar, but you had to have an average grade of 95 or above for 3
Yikes.
consecutive years.
Holy cow.
Those same 8 girls made that team as well. And then, so the academic athletes, that's pretty impressive. And then beyond that, we had one player that was named to the All-Conference Rookie Team. We had one that was named honorable mention for the all-conference team, 2 that were all-conference second team, and 1 player that was all-conference first team. And then 1 player that was made all-state, which is top players in the state,
Yeah.
regardless of conference. So quite a successful year.
How many seniors will they lose?
It's more than I realized. I think I think it's like 9.
Oh.
So it'd be an interesting year.
That's
next
all
year.
right.
They've got some
They know
really
what
good
success
underclassmen.
is.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
That's great. Anything else?
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Anyone else? I just have something, part of our board goals have been to learn more about educational programming and student engagement. And we talked a bit about that at our retreats. And I had asked if perhaps we could get together with the student council at the high school and revisit that and get some student voices so that we can learn more about different programming in the high school. And Vanessa Michu got back to me, and she did discuss, are you on the student council? Yeah, so, all right, you can chime in a minute. She met with the student council, and they thought about ways that they could meet with us and connect with different student groups. And so they've got a proposal for the board to meet during their Pride time, which is from 7:35 to 8:05, thinking that maybe we could meet, have a little breakfast, and discuss what the students are doing. And she proposed a calendar. I'm just going to read it to you. December 14th, student council officers, just as a kickoff. January 25th, class council, National Honor Society. A lot of alphabet soup. SHS.
All the honors societies. Spanish
Thank you. All the honors, okay, all the honor societies. And then February 15th, Interact Key Club, SJL,
Social Justice League.
thank you, Civil Rights and GSA.
That's yes.
Okay, it's a test. And March 15th, Debate Team, HSQS.
High school quiz show.
Oh, wow. Okay. Science Olympiad, robotics, April 12th, Be the Influence, mental health advocacy / kindness, yoga and outing club. And May 10th, Screech.
Don't know what
Yeah. I'm intrigued. I'm going to learn more what that is. Screech, knitting, book club, Geeks Templar, Leaf,
Leaf is the literary.
literary,
Yep, it's a
okay.
writing club.
Okay, and yearbook. What I like about this schedule is, in years past, it's simply been with the student council, and then occasionally other people who were, I don't want to say lurking around, but in offices or whatever, would be invited in, and we would have lunch, because we wanted a different flavor just from student council, and I think this hits the mark for different groups within the school. So I guess my question is, would there be enough board participation for us to have a couple of folks meet with the various groups at 7:35 to 8:05 on these various dates? I don't want them to plan all of this and then we don't show up, or, you know, it gives a bad look. I mean, either we're in or we're not in, and there's folks that we can at least, I would like at least two. I think we need to have at least two people there. So I'm asking, I would like consensus, is this something that this board would like to pursue and continue on with this schedule?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
Down here, yes?
Be there.
What do you, what? What?
Well, I like the idea. I like the idea of meeting with the groups.
Yeah.
I would also like to have a time to meet with some students that aren't necessarily
Part of groups?
Like, we did that before. We used to meet
Yep.
with all the Honor Society people, but then it's also important to touch base with people that maybe don't have that connection, or
Yeah, we used to do some in-school suspension
Right.
groups.
Well,
Kids that weren't in school that day. And
Yeah.
because you want all perspectives. right?
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
So if we could
Those are
find a
some
way to
That's good
fit that
feedback.
in there, then
Yeah, that's good
There's
feedback.
probably a lot of crossover too, a bunch of those groups, I feel like. So I feel like finding other people too would be good, because I'm sure there's people who are also in all of those groups that could end up being at multiple meetings. So
Yeah. All right, well, I think the makeup of the different groups for the dates can be tweaked if we want to, and you can go back with the feedback
Yeah.
that we discussed this evening, that we want broad stroke
Yes.
of student population. But if I have no objection, then I'm going to let Vanessa know, who, for those who are watching, she's the assistant principal at the high school, know that we would like to do it. Perfect. I'm excited about that. Let's move on, unless, oh no, I'm not going to move on to that yet. Committee reports. Finance?
we have not met, but we will be planning a meeting for later in this month.
Okay. And Chris has given an update on construction. Jess, curriculum?
Yes, so for curriculum, we just met on Monday. Christine Hessler updated us because the meeting before, we met with science and math teachers from each school, and we, through the committee and hearing their requests, we got to request to have access to Mystery Science. That's been approved. The RSU is receiving a free trial for all K through 5 staff. I thought it was K through 12, but until the remainder of the school year. Christine's going to survey staff to determine if the subscription should be added to the budget for the 2024 season.
What's the name of that again?
Mystery Science.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my daughter used it in Manchester too.
That sounds
And it was
intriguing.
really cool. They loved it. The committee heard from health and physical education teachers this past Monday. They shared what is going well and some barriers that they are facing, and they are excited to bring back and hopefully host a health and PE session for area schools in March. They've missed a few past years because of COVID. Next steps for these content areas will be formal review of the newly adopted Maine State learning results. As a reminder, our meetings are posted on the Curriculum Committee website, and next month on December 5th, the committee will hear from Music and Art.
Perfect. Thank you. Technology, Jody? Anything?
Yes. So we met on November the 7th. Again, just to review, this is a big group of individuals. The thing I love about this is they do deep dives on things that maybe no one else is interested in, just the tech people, and I love that, It's a broad stroke, so some educators, Christina, you've been there, so you fill in if I miss anything. So they started out reviewing a communication platform. We keep, even in committees, meetings, like we're talking about communication, it's the age of access. How does someone access information? So the tech team is taken very seriously how information gets into the hands of not just the community, but the students, the educators, what platforms they're using right now. Are there some of those redundant? Which ones do we need to keep? How do we integrate something? So it's a really great time to be having that. So a lot of time on looking at a communication technology platform. They're making some great progress. So I hope to hear and bring some of that information to you soon. Then they got into Wi-Fi performance. If you work in the district, Wi-Fi, there's been a lot of challenges. So there's really detailed conversation about why it's happening, what's been done to resolve it, stuff that quite honestly I don't understand in terms of how they reroute and grab this tower, whatever the case is. So they've done a really nice job of doing debriefs on what's happening, and I feel like everyone there, Christina, do you agree, gets a voice as far as, that you're telling me that, but I'm putting in a ticket and it's like it goes into the ether. Like nobody, so it's a good conversation, it's productive, and it always comes back around to solution. They're talking about BenQ and getting feedback from teachers on what it feels like to use them. They're not working, they are working. What is it really like when you're trying to teach, and do I plug in or do I not plug in? Who plugs in anymore? So it's a good conversation about things that are going wrong in the district, I should summarize by saying, and leave it at that. A little bit of discussion about grant opportunities, so that was really interesting, and what that looks like in terms of getting some districts, maybe Lake Region or some of the alliances together to take advantage of grants, and who would be sort of taking custody or fiscal responsibility for that. And a really exciting update from Christine Hessler on Lego kits. So using a big grant to purchase $130,000 worth of Lego kits from Lego Corporation. Those will be used across the district, putting a plan together for that over the coming weeks, and they'll be housed out of maybe a Little Red Schoolhouse or something, and then spread across the district at different levels for students and educators to try out. So that's really exciting.
Arriving on Friday.
Awesome.
All those Legos.
And I mean, just the light in her eyes, super excited for that. And I love that because STEM isn't in the curriculum at, fourth grade or whatever the case is for these younger kiddos. So hoping that we'll hear about that and some good feedback in the new year about Lego. That's it.
Perfect. The Lego carts came in on Monday.
Okay. That's technology.
Jenny?
Yes.
Adult Ed?
The Adult Ed Advisory Committee met on November 3rd, and we got information regarding the new staff that had been hired. We got updates on the enrollments, the marketing information that's going on, and with that information, the new catalog for the winter spring is going to be going to the printers shortly and hitting mailboxes the middle of December. So the new classes would start about on January 9th, so that's about 3.5 weeks before that would happen. They're trying to spread more classes throughout the semester instead of clumped a little bit more. And they're going to be trying to save a whole lot of money by having fewer pages in color and more in black and white. And let's see. A concern that has come up is some students who have signed up for classes withdrawing just before a class would start, and the ramifications of that might be not enough students then to run the class, and they're working on a little bit different refund policy, and so they've come up with a draft. They are always looking for new courses or enrichment program ideas, so if you happen to know anybody who might have something they'd like to contribute, that would be great. And that's about it. I sent the board the whole packet of minutes, so if you have any questions, let me know.
Perfect. Thank you. Al?
Yeah, two things. First, you mentioned the Wi-Fi. Actually, I think I'm totally gonna jinx this, but like in the last week or two, I haven't experienced any like major problems. So it's actually been pretty good in the last couple of weeks, which is good. The other thing is the high school quiz show team took the qualifying test to be on season 6 last Wednesday. We got the results back Tuesday. And I'm sorry to say that the schools will have to deal with competing against Wyndham High School.
Nice delivery.
The first recording date is December 8th, so I'm sure episodes will probably go out end of December, before Christmas.
That's exciting.
That's awesome.
Congratulations. That's so great. And Jenny talked about the play. Anything else that you...
I think you covered it. I think you got all the details.
Go see it.
Go see it. If you have, go see it again.
All right.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question about committees? Now that we have 2 new members on the board, when are we going to be revisiting committee
We are holding elections for leadership at the next meeting, and then whoever is in leadership will then request what people want to be on.
Okay, yeah, because I know that we now only have 2 members on the finance committee, so.
Yeah, there's some holes. There's definitely some holes.
Thank you.
Policy, the policy committee had, speaking of student voice, this was a first, I think, for the policy committee, where we had a student approach the policy committee interested in a policy on therapy dogs in the school. And this is, when she presented to us, she was a 4th grader. We met with her, it was this week, wasn't it?
Yes.
Monday? Time just goes. She's a 5th grader now, and she met with the policy committee last spring and had a PowerPoint and presented it, interviewed students, had letters of affirmation from Gorham administrators and Westbrook administrators, which were included in her presentation. And we met with her on Monday with a staff member who has just recently acquired a dog that she's hoping to be trained as a therapy dog. So the committee had a very robust discussion about the wonders of having therapy dogs in our schools. And afterwards, the committee met, and we are working on a draft to hopefully present to the board. In addition, we also discussed just a generic, I don't mean it like that really, but animals in the schools. We do not have any firm policy about a staff member having a lizard or whatever in the schools, and there needs to be some guardrails on that at this point in time. So we're working on that too. But student engagement, that was really, it was pretty powerful to have someone from Manchester School present to a group of adults, very confidently, I might add, and made a case and made an impact, and I think it's going to happen. So it's wonderful to have student voices. So that's policy. We're going to move on to item number 10, which is a little shift, drinking water sample testing. And I'd love for Bill Hansen, Director of Facilities, Property Services, and Special Projects, to give an update on that.
Hi, good Good evening. Bill Hanson, RSU 14 Facilities Director. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about LDL 153. Okay, if you're not familiar with it, if you look on the state website, it's a law that was enacted in 2020. We have till this December 31st of this year to be in compliance with it. And what it really entails is testing all of the drinking water locations in all of our schools. So let me define that a little bit further for you. So by drinking water locations, we're talking about faucets that are not custodial, not automatic faucets, places where you can get cold water. Okay, so we did include all the science room faucets because in theory, you could get a glass of cold water from it. Are we supposed to? Not technically. Science rooms are supposed to not have food, but we did include that to be very, very thorough in our investigation. So it does require that we do this. Now, what is the test? Okay, what ends up happening is we have to take a faucet, it has to set unused for a minimum of 8 hours. The reason for that is that water sits in there, and one of the things that's I've learned a little bit about is that prior to 2014, faucets were allowed to have 8% lead in them. And you say, why was there lead in faucets? Lead is added to brass to make it more machinable and easier to form into the parts in faucets. Also provides a wear characteristic to it. That's why lead was put into it. So what we've learned since Flint, Michigan, and everything else, that lead leaches into water, and it's not a real healthy thing for us to have in our drinking water. So in 2014, that's when really things have changed, where plumbing fixtures were now only allowed to have 1/4% by weight of lead in the brass. Okay, so that's kind of the background. Our test is basically unused for 8 hours. We pull the first drawer off of that faucet, and that's what gets tested. Okay, so to date now we have tested all the schools. I don't have results back yet for the middle school, the high school, and primary school. We did those Veterans Day. So I expect them back in the next week or so. So what have we found? We found first, the good news is all the new water fountains we put in, the automatic ones, are all less than 1 part per billion. That's the good news. The challenging news is that a lot of our older fixtures are over that 4 part per billion limit. Now, just where that came from, the EPA has a limit of 15 parts per billion. When this law was enacted, the state of Maine set the actual limit at 4 parts per billion, or roughly 1/4 of what the original limit was. Okay? So the good news for us is the state's paying for the testing. Okay? The bad news for us is the remediation they're not paying for, which means we have to decide what we're going to do with remediation. Okay? So now when we have faucets that test above the 4 parts per billion, our next step is to do a confirmation test, a flush test, and a test of the incoming water. So why do we do that? The confirmation test is to make sure that the first test was accurate. So it will be another 8-hour hold on all the samples that tested over 4. And then after that, we will run the faucet and do a secondary test. The reason for that is the lead in the actual faucet device itself, or is in the piping prior to that? Because as prior to 1984, I believe is the date, I could be a little wrong on that, lead was put in solder that was used commonly to join copper pipes. So that's another potential source of lead. And finally, you need to test the source water, because lead could be coming in from outside. Again, that's really what happened in Flint, Michigan, is they changed the treatment of their water, and it changed the chemistry in the piping, and then the lead that was bound now also started coming through the water systems and cause all those problems. So our next step is to work on that confirmation, flushing, and sample testing. So as you know, our newer school was renovated in 2004. So that's way before the 2014. Okay, so we're going to find faucets that are that way. So what do? So we found faucets and things at RES. Okay, it was built in 2000. The drinking faucets of open bag do not use at this point in time. We'll be retesting them and doing the flushing test. The kitchen faucets that we were found, they were flushing prior to use, which is acceptable practice when this happens. We'll be replacing those with new faucets. Again, RES was built in 99, 2000, so we know that was before the new standard. What's really interesting though, even a new faucet can test high in its initial few tests, because even if the lead is less than a quarter percent, it's still very available when it's brand new, and more will leach out over time. So if you think about it from a potential, over time it gets less. But those are some of the challenges ahead of us. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have concerning this. But it's been a little bit of education for me. I was surprised that we would have as many of the challenges. And then places where I thought we'd have challenges, Field Allen, as you're familiar, we ran a new water line this past year too. Every fixture in Field Allen was less than the 4 parts per billion. Our oldest school that we have in the district. Okay? So, you know, it's really something. And one of the challenges we do have that, you know, there's going to be a financial impact here. I want to be real honest with you. You know, we'll be looking at this. We'll be coming back with a plan as to what we're gonna do. I really think there's a huge benefit to having drinking water available in our kindergarten, first, second grade, third grade classes, because it's really prevents interruption of going outside of the classroom and coming back, and supervision's a lot better. But I will tell you right now that all those little bubble faucets will have to be replaced, and that's going to be probably about a $20,000 to $25,000 cost to the district to do that district-wide. Okay, if we replace all the faucets we have to, we could be close to the $50,000 cost to make that all happen. So there is a cost associated with that. I'll be getting back to you on that when we get there. Did not anticipate that there was be that much of a challenge. I felt pretty good that, you know, I felt for sure when we started this that I may have some problems with Field Allen, but most of the places should be good. Well, that's actually, I was absolutely wrong. But the really good news is that, again, the things that have helped us is all the new water fountains we put in, again, they're all tested in less than 1 part per billion, which is basically non-detect. And that's where a lion's share of our water is being picked up. And I'll ask Al to chime in here, but it seems like the kids have really enjoyed having the bottle fills as opposed to the regular water fountains. So I think that, you know, as time goes on, we need to continue to, you know, install those throughout the schools because it's really well and working well. And even in the K-3 classes, we actually tried out in the primary school a cup fill, which basically is very similar. So what does, nice thing what that is, it moves the person away from the water source. So rather than coming down to the faucet to drink out of, you're actually filling a cup and then you're drinking it. So I think it's a nice alternative. So with that, I don't know what questions you may have, but I'll do my best to answer them. Yeah.
It sounds like it wasn't required, but did you test any of the kitchen faucets for water they might be cooking with?
Yeah, yes, I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, all the kitchen faucets were tested, every single one. And interesting, like at Manchester, every single thing we tested was fine, except the faucet that feeds the kettle, the steam kettle. Okay. Now, I didn't anticipate that. We did make sure it was properly set up before the test. It tested high. We'll have to retest it again. So we've asked Jeannie not to use that faucet to fill the kettle. And it tested above the 15 parts per billion. I can look the number up for you. I don't want to take too much time, but it's above the 15. So we asked her to do that. And even some of the prep sinks we've had in the kitchen tested above, again, which they use every day to make sense. So we're just going to replace those fixtures, okay? Because if you have, this is my logic behind it. If I have a drinking water fountain that we put in a new one that tests less than 1 part per billion, my problem is probably not the piping or the source, because it would show up there as well, right? It would make sense to be there. So pretty certain it's those faucets, since again, RES, those faucets were brand new in 1999 prior to that 2014 change in lead content. There's a good chance the brass on those fixtures have the higher 8% lead content.
So you kind of answered it already. I was thinking, so best case scenario, we're replacing fixtures. Worst case scenario is what? That it's a water source is where it's coming from?
So you're right on that. So best case scenario, it's a fixture. When we replace a fixture, we will retest again and confirm that we meet the standard. If in the process of doing our confirmation test, the flush test shows that we have a high source of lead, that's telling us it's either going to be in the source water or in the piping. And there are some schools that may have those issues. And I encourage you to go look at the results, because there are some schools that have some lead levels that are really, really high, super high. So that's the next worst case is if you had lead that's coming from the piping. The worst would be the source water. The good news to know here, for at least up in Raymond, where we have our own wells, that lead level is already being tested is part of our requirements to have our public well. So we're already looking at those things. Okay, so that's already a requirement that we are below the 15 coming in. So that part I'm not so concerned about. All our schools in Windham are served by Portland Water District, which again typically has not been an issue with that. So I feel comfortable it's not going to be a source water issue. And I thought for sure if there was one building that I'd have a piping issue, it would have been field down. But again, the middle school, again 77, that's prior to 84. So that could be a place where we have a challenge. That's probably our next older building, but that's pretty much it.
Anybody else? Thank you, Bill. I know
So
it's a lot of work.
just the last thing is on our website, I'm publishing the results. The state requires me to put all the faucets that fail. I don't think that's really being, I want to be more transparent, so I'm putting the complete test results, so you can look at all the different faucets in the rooms, and if you have a question of which the third bench to the right second faucet is, I'm happy to take you there and show you that. But all the results are there, and as we get more results, I'll make sure they go in there, and so that will keep being updating as we go through the process. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks.
Perfect, and thank you for your update. We will now move on to item 11. We're going to get an update about the Altitude program, and I'm happy to welcome Rich Meserve, who's going to present that update.
Thank you. Great to be here. It's been about 4 some odd years since I've been standing at this podium. Lectern, I'm a podium. Others say lectern. I was thinking of what to say to start out here, and I guess 2 things. One, I apologize for my very business casual. We had a open house potluck family dinner tonight, and I literally just ran over here from that. Had to leave early, and I don't have my Sunday best on. I apologize, but anyway, it was a fantastic turnout, and I'll get into a little bit more about what that's all about and what it means to our team in a minute. But you know, it was a good night, and anyway, let me kind of get into some of the nuts and bolts of what the Altitude team is all about. So for lack of a better description, and I don't like to use the term alternative program, but I will, for lack of a better way of putting it. But we are a brand new team assembled at Windham Middle School. There's 3 of us who are part of that team, myself, Lisa Anderson, and Autumn Carlson-Cook, 2 teachers from Windham Middle School. And I've come from greener pastures, but am excited to be back within the fold. As Mr. Howell said once upon a time, like a bad penny. I think sometime in August he said when he saw me. I think that's meant to be a compliment. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Well, I know. As I'm speaking about Mr. Howell, I'd just like to say, if you need help unloading the Lego truck, I think our students would be glad to do. I'm not sure it's all going to get into the Little Red Schoolhouse, but we would love to do that. Anyway, so that is our staff that we have. We have 23 students that make up our team. We have both 7th and 8th graders. We have 15 7th graders, 8 8th graders. Our students have come to us typically for both attendance and engagement issues in the past. So we're kind of obviously looking to improve those things as we work with them throughout the year. You know, our smaller class size hopefully is going to be something that will allow them to you know, get into that sense of community, feel more comfortable coming to school, you know, work on that relationship piece, which is really important, hopefully, to, you know, change some of those things that have gotten in the way in the past. You know, our guiding principles are really about creating community within our team. That word community we actually use as communities because we want it to be about Altitude, we want it to be about Windham Middle School, the town of Windham, the greater community, and then off into, you know, the ethereal wherever world. Really, we're using that as a way to, you know, define space, define community, and define relationships. So excited to be, you know, mixing that whole thing into the milieu of our academic plan as well. You know, we have the clear and effective communicator piece, the self-directed learner piece. All of these things are things that we talk about frequently with our students and try to make connections in community, in real life, so that they're starting to identify with things that they may be passionate about, which many of our students don't really come to us with too much that they can self-describe as something I really want to do. So we're really trying to expose them to as many things as possible to try to get that hook into, finding something that will mean, I want to come to school and learn this, or this might be the thing that I ultimately do when I leave not only this building and go to the high school, but what's next after that. So that's a big piece of what we're looking for. In terms of the practical nature of the program, so many of our students start with us in the Ignite block, which is the first period of the day that starts at 7:05 to 8:10. After that, we either have a 2-hour block with our 7th graders or a 2-hour block with our 8th graders, and then that will flip day by day and, vice versa for later in the afternoon. So our students were with us for those blocks, and then they go out to other teams to be on their ELA classes, their math classes, and their applied arts classes. So our primary focuses are social studies and science, in addition to those character building pieces and everything else that we're working on with our students, and trying to really build our team into one cohesive unit. So that is that. Let's see, what else can I tell you? So, yeah, we're really looking to provide support to our students both within Altitude and then obviously with the work that they do in their other classes as well. Really trying to tie in as many of those real life, hands-on, experiential, all the words that you want to insert there, experiences that we can get both in-house and then out in the community as many as possible. So we are in our space. We have 3 classrooms that we share. We have a community room. We have more of a traditional academic-y room, if you will, which is currently housing all the possible new furniture for the new school. So that got delivered about a month and a half ago. We are the test rooms for that furniture, and I must say it's wonderful, except almost every piece of furniture has wheels, which can be good and can be very bad. Most of the furniture no longer has wheels because we found out we could take the wheels off. So anyway, but I mean, we have a 4-piece couch and a round couch. It's phenomenal. That's been very popular, as you can well imagine. But so that is one of our academic rooms. Then we have a project room where students are doing more of the sort of building creative side of the house. That's currently housing our displays for our World Fair projects that we just did, and those were all set up for the parents to come in and look at. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But yeah, so that's our physical space. I don't want to keep going on and on about some stuff I've already said. So just in terms of one thing that we're really focused on, we do want to make school feel and look a little bit different for our students. So, I mean, it is still school, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely, school hasn't really worked necessarily for all of our students as we define school in a traditional sense. So, I am a I will teach social studies and history all day. I absolutely love it. So we are academic based, don't get me wrong, but pulling in pieces from the community as much as we can and other experiences, we're certainly using those because we're looking for those hooks. We're looking for those hooks to get the kids to really engage with school again. Setting these kids up for the best possible future is really what we're going for. We're starting in middle school. I know the high school world. You know me from the Katahdin program, from where I was last year. And I know that I would, in a perfect world, like to have our students not need to go into the Katahdin program. Not that that's a bad thing. It's a great thing. I'd love to go through the Katahdin program if I was a student. But, there are other ways of doing it. And hopefully we keep our kids engaged and passionate about moving on to the high school as opposed to some of them being deathly afraid. Those big scary high schoolers. So what are some of the partnerships that we've worked on? So Be the Influence already. You've heard some of these folks already today. Wyndham Community Gardens, we just secured a space there, big, huge plot, which we're really excited about. I just submitted a grant actually for that last night, very late last night. Hopefully that'll come through for us. That'll be something we'll do in conjunction with putting a pollinator garden in front of the junior high. look at me dating myself, middle school. And he didn't even get that. Anyway, yeah, we're excited about that. We've got lots of different designs of how the students want the beds to be. We've got some competing designs going on right now in terms of what we're actually going to grow there, how many vegetables. Are we going to have a cutting bed, which we hope to do to maybe raise some money via some bouquets that we can sell or provide to teachers for their desks, something like that. So Wyndham Historical Society, we've done some work with them. We actually had some students going over and doing some cleaning and organizing in the one-room schoolhouse and learning about things firsthand from the wonderful people that were working with us on that project. We've worked with the Falmouth Historical Society. I'm on their board. And so we've done some stuff with them. We went to Falmouth Town Hall and got a very old ballot box that they offered us to use for our mock election.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some students come with me to pick that up, and then did a tour of Town Hall, talked about the different departments there, met different staff. There were people that were there voting absentee. So we kind of explained how that whole thing works. So that's that type of real life experience that I'm talking about. So students were like, what happens in this building? I have no idea. You know, from taxes to registrations to dog licenses, everything in between, the students really found out about that. And they met the people that did it, and they talked to them a little bit about their jobs. We're doing as much connection with people out in the field with career sort of exploration at a very basic level right now, but still exposing them to jobs and to things that they are going to, you know, at some point have to decide, what am I going to do to earn my living? So that's one thing we've done. Let's see, Nordics Labs was actually in our school. It's Maine Bioscience Week, and we had a member from their team come in and talked all about her role, other roles at the company, and then she did some great experiments with us, and the kids had their lab coats on and, you know, their goggles and everything else. So that was pretty neat. We got some great pictures of that. Sebago Lake Rotary, so the Interact Club, I heard you mention that earlier, which I know has had some fluctuation in membership. We're going to start up a middle school Interact Club. We're really excited to do that through our team. And we've already got a plan to work with a school in Romania where we're going to help them get books for their school library. And we will be able to Zoom with the students and, you know, make that international connection, which I think will just be really neat for both students concerned, you know, on both sides of the pond, so to speak. Aspire Gorham, we're working with the Gorham Middle School Alternative Program, where Heather Whitaker is the teacher. I'm good friends with Heather, and so we're going to try to partner with a whole bunch of stuff. But Aspire Gorham brings in career panels to speak to students, and so we're going over on Friday with our entire team, and then some JMG students as well, just to learn about the different careers that I believe six people are going to be speaking about. It's all outdoor related. Maine Game Warden, there's a VP from Sugarloaf, there's someone who from one of the ski and snowboard companies, whole bunch of different things. And so students will learn about those careers, be able to ask questions, learn about those important soft skills that we need to get a job, hold a job, those types of things. So let's see, last up in terms of partnership things, we've got some free skating that we're going to be doing with both of our different groups at Falmouth Community Ice. So they offer free skating opportunities. So we're going to start that up in a couple weeks, and we're excited to do that with our students as well. So we've done a couple projects of significance in terms of the time that they've taken. One was a Green Man project. That was something that Autumn did with the students. It was a project that linked science and art through the lens of the changing seasons, and they made really kind of the culminating product was a really neat thing that's on display in one of the cases in the downstairs hallway at the middle school. So check that out if you're in the neighborhood. And then just kind of to wrap everything else up, I just talk about our fair project, which was the projects that you would see when you went there if you were to walk over, and I hope they're all gone now since it's whatever o'clock at night, but we had a World's Fair project that so all the students studied an individual World's Fair for somewhere in the world, sometime in the history, and they had to choose a particular either building or exhibit or something else from one of those World Fairs and create that and use that as a talking piece for when the parents came around, they would then talk about their piece, and then the World's Fair in general. But we also, so we went to the Freiburg Fair this year, and just tied that in with comparing it to other fairs. Did you know, and I wasn't going to say this, but I think it's so disgusting and fascinating at the same time, that there is fried butter at fairs?
Yes.
I didn't realize that. So do people eat that and live to talk about it? I don't know, but it was neat because the students described, this is what you see at a typical Maine fair, what they got from Freiburg, et cetera, and then comparing it with, the Omaha State Fair or the Honolulu State Fair or whatever it was, and just kind of these Venn diagrams of what's similar and then what's very different. So that kind of stuff, and then tying it all in with the World's Fair project, which really turned out pretty neat tonight. And the kids were proud of what they did, and their parents were proud, and it was a nice way for everyone. They brought phenomenal food. I had one of the best macaroni and cheeses I've ever had. I'm not sure what country that was supposed to be from or what fair that was, but I didn't care because it was delicious. But we did have some unique things that were made, and most were actually made by or helped by students, which was great. I didn't expect that. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. I'm sorry if I've gone on. I'm kind of proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of the kids, so it's good. Be glad to answer any questions. So.
Anybody?
Excuse me. We had a couple of middle schoolers come down to primary and help out at recess a few weeks back. Were those your students?
They weren't done.
They weren't.
It wasn't done through me, but
okay, I didn't know if that
sometimes
was
they just wander down there. I don't know.
No, it was definitely it was worked out with Drew. I didn't know if those were part of your program.
No, they weren't. To my knowledge, they weren't. But we do hope to do that. Lisa Anderson has done a lot of reading support over the years with her middle schoolers at the primary school in Manchester. So we hope to do that.
Okay, well, it worked out well. Whatever program you're.
I should say yes, just to make us sound better. But thank you for mentioning that, though. It's on our radar. We are brand new and trying to make a lot work right now and trying to fit a lot in. So but that is something that we hope to do. Thanks for mentioning that, though.
And I'll just say you should be proud. It sounds like a really great program that you're developing. So, and sorry if I missed it. How many students are you serving right now?
23.
23?
23.
And I know it's early, but how easy would it be to replicate this for like Jordan Small? Because one of our goals is to provide equity.
Absolutely.
Until we get to the consolidated middle school. I'm just wondering what opportunities there might be for Jordan Small.
I would, we're not magicians. We're not magical educators. I think this could happen. This could happen easily. So Pete, to be honest with you, one of the biggest, so I've named a lot of things, and I've named a lot of things where we've gone places. One of the headaches and hiccups is transportation. So I may or may not have been able to pull strings to borrow some vans, et cetera, from places I may or may not have worked, which certainly has helped things, and those are close by to us. Up here, I'm not sure what's available, and that's one of the bigger things, because I mean, if you listen here, we've been around, we've moved around, and even just getting to the community garden, we walked once. We won't walk again. That's not a fun road to walk on. Kids did great. Drivers did not do great. So, that's a big thing that we're still working on. The easier that is, the less headaches that is. Just going to Gorham Middle School is going to, to get a bus is a process, and it's not inexpensive, to say the least. So that's budget that's coming out of our little budget that we have. But we think it's important for our kids to get out and to experience school somewhere else as much as we can. So that's a big thing. Other than that, it's just finding the right staff. The staff, I mean, you definitely, we are building the airplane as we fly it, and that doesn't work for everyone. So that's part of it. But I think we're building it and flying it pretty well.
Good. Just if I can just say a couple. First of all, we are designing specific built space and classroom space, meeting space within the new middle school facility as its own separate component. Just the altitude program was created actually with no budget impact, because what ended up happening was then some of the teams are a little bit larger, and then some of the students that were pulled off of team were then taken by individuals who had a heart and a passion for, student engagement, alternative education, and being able to pull. So it was done creating with existing staff. And so I think one thing that we need to take a look at budget-wise as we move into budget season is, how do we maintain programs like this, or how do we also, bring Jordan Small kids in as well who could benefit. And then we've had a lot of discussion lately about district programming that may be at one site versus multiple sites, and being able to do that and support the needs of kids. But this has been a great effort by 3 very dedicated staff members who've been pulled together to create a team and to make this happen for kids in a very short period of time, because it's November 16th, 17th, and this was brand new in August. So they've done a great job getting that together.
Thank you. This was really great to hear. The student engagement is amazing, but I give you a huge kudos, and it worked out perfectly that tonight was our school board meeting to have the parent engagement piece too, because that, as you obviously know too, but that's so important for their success. So
Right.
that was great to hear that we had a lot of parents attending tonight as well.
It really did my heart well to see that happen. That partnership piece is often not as strong as it could and should be, and so we're really focusing on that, and that's going to be a big push for us going forward, especially now that we've seen them and we've shared. We broke bread together.
Yeah, they're gonna want that bread every time.
I've already put in an order for every Friday macaroni and cheese every Friday. So the grandmother knows, and she actually might do it, which is wonderful.
Well,
Not
and
good
that's
for my
just,
waist.
I know that's really the hardest piece in some of the work that I've done in the past is getting parents engaged.
Right.
So just to hear that was
Yeah,
the
and
one
it's
thing
beyond-
that kind of really stuck out.
It's great, and it's beyond parents, right? I mean, it goes beyond that. The support networks that our students have, or maybe could use a little bit more of, we're really pushing that as much as we can, and we will continue to try to do even more. So, and that should be everywhere, right? It's not just our program, but we have the time and the staff to do it, and so we're doing it. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. And 23 students, so my assumption is there's a wait list of other students that could really use this program as well. How long is that list?
I've heard the principal say that, yes.
I figured Katahdin does.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. There are students that I think would be readily slid into any available slot, or as we, move forward, we'll see what our numbers look like and what makes sense. We need to make sure that we, and I know that when you look at the staff to student ratio, it seems a little wonky, but I mean, what we're doing requires our numbers. And I think to do it with fidelity, if we got much bigger, it's not going to look like what it looks like, and then it isn't as effective.
Right.
So, but we'll see as we move along, and we'll get back to you.
So this is a year-long.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
So-
and our students are with us, in theory, our 7th graders are with us next year.
Oh,
And so
okay.
we'll have a foundation of 15 strong and bought-in team members to help our incoming 7th graders next year.
And
But
how
who knows what next year looks like? I mean, we're still trying to figure it out.
Right, I
But
mean,
if
you're-
it's status quo like this, we'll just augment it with new students next year.
I think it's remarkable the amount of activities. I mean, it's only November 16th, and it's just astounding what you've been offering these students. And my question is, what's the selection process?
So these students, all of us came on board. So I was the last person hired well into August. I didn't even know about this and just kind of was like, this sounds neat. I'll step away
Right.
from what I was doing and get back to working with students, which really thrilled me. So our students were presented to us. It was I believe a team of our admin team, counselors, and a few other staff, just teaching staff, et cetera. Mostly admin counselors who determined the students that we have, based on, I think, those 2 pieces I said at the beginning, the attendance and the engagement pieces, the lack thereof, and just kind of identified students that not only would hopefully we'd be able to address those issues, but they thought that these students would benefit from small class sizes, the relationship piece, all of the things that we were trying to do in terms of, offering things that didn't work for them in the past.
So parents have to sign off on this, correct?
All the parents, and I saw the emails, Drew forwarded those to me, said all parents approved of this happening, yes. This was not an unwilling.
So you're at your max, 23?
We're at
to do
where
it
we want to be
right.
right now, I think, yes. As we progress, hoping my colleagues aren't watching. Who knows? Who knows? But we can't get too much bigger, I think,
Right.
as we're currently constituted in the way we want to operate.
I know we had talked probably with you in years past and currently with the Katahdin staff and their capacity and their program, and there was always the notion that there were so many in the wings, not just in high school. But I think at one point, didn't Katahdin also have middle schoolers attend for a time? Not recently maybe, but back in the day.
When it was real school day.
Yeah, when it was real school.
Yes.
And I know there had been some interest expressed by this board to expand this kind of educational programming.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty thrilled. Welcome back.
Thanks.
And it sounds like you've got a good thing going, and I look forward to hearing about more later.
We do. I'd love to, continue this into a district-wide model of integrating from pre-K to 12 and beyond. Just a way for looking at school a little bit differently. Heather Whitaker and I have been talking about that in Gorham too.
You were here when we were talking about the student council.
Yeah.
Right, that whole discussion. And I'm just wondering, is there any merit in having a couple of board, maybe it's too premature right now, but maybe in the spring, once you've really got your feet on the ground and the students are comfortable with the program, to maybe combine the Katahdin program students with some of your students and get some feedback for the board as to what they love about it and, maybe what could be improved, I don't know.
I had to ask people to stop begging me to come tonight. Students.
Wow.
I had a number who wanted to come and speak to you.
Oh, well then, we'll sign you up.
I wanted to get back and watch the Celtics game, so I knew I'd have to drop them off, and so I said no. I thought I actually needed to give more warning if a student was or students were gonna come and present, and so, sorry. But next time, put an invite out. I have lots of students who honestly want to come and share what they've
Is there
done.
any integration between Katahdin and yours? Is that something that's appropriate or no?
It certainly could be in some way, shape, or form. I speak with Craig
Right.
frequently and certainly know the team there quite well. We will potentially have all sorts of collaboration. I know in terms of the outdoor programming and using Rod Nadeau to help some of our students with various things, we have talked about that. And he's been very generous with sharing some resources, et cetera. So,
Perfect.
in terms of student-to-student collaboration, nothing yet, but it's certainly in the cards.
Well, we're going to put you on the list for future presentations.
Please do.
Bring as many students
We're
as
not
you
putting
can.
you on the list. We're putting
No, you want them on the list for sure.
Putting your program on the list.
Great.
So thank you very much. This is very exciting.
Great,
Anybody
thanks.
else?
Thank
I just have one thing. I love the idea of having educators in our district that take the initiative to step out into something like this. Chris, you've talked to us a lot, Christine, about your strategic plan. And I don't know how much traction that gets in the houses of our families as far as, I pulled this spreadsheet out of my bag because it's pretty detailed, right? The strategic plan, what's being focused on right now. And I think it's worth saying out loud, equity and inclusion, whole child strategy, and student engagement. You talked to us a lot about focusing on those three. This hits all of them. I think it's also terrific that as we lead into having consultants come in to do programming for the last couple of years for the new middle school, and the work that's being done by people like yourself in the district is not only working the strategic plan, but it's also using the planning that we've paid for consulting and getting the educators bringing kids in early and often and identifying those that need it. I love everything about it. And I think that's important to kind of put a framework, because I'm not sure families really understand that they're working this plan and those things aren't separate ideas, they're just together. So I just think this is just a fantastic way to illustrate that hard work that's done all the time, not just for these 23, but the concept and this stuff takes time, you know, to prove out. So thanks for the
But it also takes leadership to recognize that, and it's a big reason why I came back to RSU 14. This is a great place to work. It's a very progressive, understanding community of educators and the board, to be honest with you. This doesn't happen everywhere, and it's a special place. And so it's a great place to work and a great place to be a student. Truly, this doesn't happen everywhere else. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rich.
All right. We are going to shift into item number 12, which we've had extensive dialogue this evening. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the RSU 14 Emergency Operations Plan for 2022-2023.
Second. Any public comments? Seeing none. Any board discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right. We're going to move into policies. Let me get my notes out. I have a motion, please.
I keep going. I move to approve the first reading of JLF, Child Abuse Reporting, Prevention, and Education.
Second.
Public comment. Board discussion.
I have a question. On the abuse form report, it specifically states mothers' names, fathers' names. Every family's different, and it might, including it might be a custodial grandparent. So I was wondering if it could be updated to be a little more generic. So,
yeah, and just something to share with the form is that
and this is old, I know that.
well, we don't use a paper form.
Okay.
We have an electronic system that we use that automatically pulls all that information out of Infinite Campus,
Okay.
so that anybody's directory information is then added to that form and report for our own recording. So if it is a grandparent that's a guardian, it then pulls that and all their contact information automatically. That also allows us to track over time what's happening with reports as far as with our students, and we can go back over multiple years and just see, you know, if something appears in 8th grade and you know, we can look back and say, wait a minute, some similar issue was happening in 4th grade. And so to be able to do that, we have those electronic forms, which is available to our counseling staff and our building administrators. And then anytime one gets filed, we get notified, and also Terry gets notified just to make sure. In addition, DHHS is also now, DHS has also gone to electronic reporting, which makes it a little bit easier too, but just a component. The other thing that just was one of the highlights in here, anytime that somebody is not part of the immediate household, there's also the duty to report to the district attorney's office and to go through that process if there's abuse of a child. I might as well jump into the end piece, which was the legislative piece of making sure that there's some sexual abuse prevention education that's also going on as well, which has been part of the curriculum for students in RSU 14 for as long as I can remember. Late 90s, the health committee put that in. Parents are notified when those types of activities are taking place, and then in addition some responsibility and need to make sure that staff members are trained in being able to identify abuse. So sorry if I jumped in.
No, I'm pleased that you did. we currently have a policy, as you know, and what was in your packet is the cross out and highlights. The abuse form, I mean, good catch, Jenny, that needs to be tweaked, but you're not voting on the form.
Correct, right. That was all part of the,
It's just for information. I think we had talked, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we were going to put it on the website anyway, just for information for parents or staff or community members. But you're not voting on this. This was just so that you could see what the information looks like. Any comments? We're going to do, because there's so many changes, we're going to do a first and a second. So you have some time if you think of anything else. And if there's no other comments, may I have a vote, please? Oh, all those in favor. I keep thinking we're remote. We're not. Thank you. Okay, next. May I have a motion for BEAA?
I move to approve the first reading of BEAA, Standard Operating Procedures to Guide Communication with Public.
Second. Public comment, seeing none. Board discussion. This, as you know, we have a BEA on the books, which is called Board of Directors Use of Electronic Mail. This policy came as a result of our January retreat, where we discussed we needed to really fine-tune what communication looked like when we received something from the public. This is not only emails, but some other information that kind of gives some guardrails for us. This was based on the feedback that you all provided, and the policy committee kind of put it all together. So any comments about what's before you? Nope. Seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you. We'll be seeing this again for a second reading. I'm going to put this aside. Where's my agenda? Okay. Now we're going to do GBN. Motion, please.
I move to approve the first reading of GBN, Family and Medical Leave.
second.
Public comment, seeing none. Board discussion. I'm going to be honest. Chris and Christine are the ones who live with this on a daily basis, and I'm going to turn the explanation over to them. What you have before you is a lot of yellow, which is new. And then following that is our current policy, just so that if you are so moved, you could do a side-by-side. But I'm going to let Mr. Howell speak to this, please.
Yeah, so the changes that you're seeing in front of you are in response to new legislation that went into effect August 8th, 2022. Previous to this, if you're not familiar with FMLA, basically Family Medical Leave Act says that for a whole list of reasons, maybe care of a family member, birth of a child, adoption of a child, that you are entitled of up to 12 weeks of leave within a 2-year period, and it secures your job. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're paid, but it makes sure that your job stays the way it is. For schools, we actually have now 3 leaves that we administer. One is, in order to be able to be eligible, you have to have worked 1,250 hours in the previous year to be eligible for your 12 weeks of leave, and that provides you for FMLA. In addition, there is main leave, which has different requirements, which it gives you up to 10 weeks of leave. And the legislature, for hourly employees, added a new school member leave, which is that if you work 900 hours within that time period, then you are eligible for the same benefits under FMLA, which is the 12 weeks of leave. So this is in recognition of that new main school employee leave that was passed by the legislature in this last session. And there's a whole list here: birth and care of a newborn child, placement for adoption, foster care, care for immediate family member, medical leave, or other leaves, that National Guard or other pieces. And so when Michelle, who was our HR person, when she has someone who requests leave, she actually has to run the test against all these different leaves. Someone who is a brand new employee and has not worked the 1,250 hours is not eligible for FMLA. It's only those individuals who have reached that point, and then there's guardrails or amount of time that you can take within that.
Well done.
Thank you.
Any other comment? All those in favor?
Sorry,
Oh,
I
I'm
was just
sorry.
gonna ask about the notes, because there was a couple, if this, then that, like when we were gonna discuss which exact, like where the 12 weeks of, deployed.
Those
things
are
happen.
just notes that were from MSMA drafts,
Right.
and they will be pulled out from this. So,
Okay, some of them, like that specific deployed one, said, you could choose to do it a different way. So I didn't know if that was something, I assume you talked about it in policy.
did.
And you're gonna leave it the way it is?
everything
So
that-
without the note?
Yeah, sorry to jump in. I
Yeah.
think what you're asking is, in this particular case, we got the recommendation from Michelle to do a 12-month forward. So there's
Okay.
they have a very well-established system, and all those leave systems coordinate together on a certain calendar. So we would do a 12-month forward. So largely, the notes were included for you to have the background of what MSMA was recommending, because it is complex in terms of what we're asking to replace the whole thing part and parcel. We had an hour-long conversation just about the different in policy, just so that we understood what we were looking at. But it's a good point. And if I remember right, Kate, we left them in just to have this discussion.
For reference,
Exactly.
but they won't
Yeah.
stay in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And just if the one other piece there, I could just speak to the notes, is that we run leave concurrently, so that if you qualify for FMLA and you have sick time, that you then can, that leave run concurrently. It's not that you use your sick time and then you move to FMLA. And just to clarify, the 2 years, it takes a year to qualify for the FMLA, to then have FMLA in that next year. And so it does take a little bit of time to qualify in order to be able to reach that.
Are you good? Okay. Let's vote. All those in favor? Thank you. And our final policy for the evening, GBO.
I move to approve the revised reading of GBO, family care leave.
Second. Thank you. Public comment, seeing none. Board discussion. As you can see, there's just one strikeout. And as a result, we didn't feel it was a need to do a first and second read, because that's pretty simple for this change, unless anyone has any concerns. Any comment? All right. All in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
Oh, no.
Where am I? Oh, I crossed it out. Report of the secretary, sorry.
I move to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Public comment, board discussion. Everything's okay? Yes? No? Yes?
I was voting prematurely. I
Oh.
apologize.
All those in favor? Thank you. All right, now,
Oh,
Abstain.
you abstain or no?
I was an abstention.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
perfect.
I know.
I'm going to go to item 15. I have a motion for executive session, please.
I move to approve going into executive session to discuss RSU 14 contract negotiations with the RSU 14 Board of Directors pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056D and not return to regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Have a good night,
We are in
all.
executive
Drive careful.